Hook. Imagine working your whole life for something, every drop of sweat, every blister, every sunrise spent breaking ground on soil that belonged to your family for generations, only to wake up one morning and find strangers had stolen it. No warning, no respect, just cement, bricks, and neatly trimmed lawns where your corn once grew. And not just one house, but 35 of them. That's what happened to me. And when no lawyer, no sheriff, and no official wanted to listen, I realized I had one last card to play, one secret buried in the earth that no one else knew about. A dam, my water, my land. And one stormy night, I opened it. But before I tell you what happened when the water rushed down that valley, I need you to know how it all began. A broken bar. The farm wasn't just dirt and grass, it was my family's legacy. My grandfather had cleared the trees with his own hands. My father had built the barn with salvaged lumber, and I spent every summer of my youth mending fences and learning how to coax life from stubborn soil. Our land stretched into the low valley where a small stream ran, and when I was 19, my father and I built a modest earthen dam to create a reservoir. That dam was our lifeline. It gave us water during droughts, it fed our cattle, and it was something we were proud of because no one else could see its value but us. After my father passed, the farm became my anchor. I wasn't rich, but I was rooted. Every nail in the farmhouse, every apple tree that lined the driveway, carried memories. Neighbors came and went, but I stayed, and I thought the land would stay with me too. Until one spring, I started hearing the trucks. It began with surveyors, men in reflective vests measuring boundaries and tapping stakes into the earth. I confronted them, but they waved papers in my face, saying they had permits from the county. "This land isn't yours," one of them said flatly, as if my entire life was just a clerical error. I went to the courthouse, and I was told the same thing. Somehow, through bureaucracy and signatures I never gave, my family's farm had been rezoned and sold off. The paperwork was clean. My protests were unfounded. Then came the bulldozers. Day after day, I watched them tear apart the soil I had nurtured my whole life. They leveled the fields where my father taught me to drive a tractor. They poured concrete where my grandfather once sat with his pipe and told stories. Soon, rows of houses rose, a pale gray, cookie-cutter homes with white vinyl fences. The sign went up next: Maple Springs HOA, luxury living in a growing community. I tried everything, petitions, lawyers, even standing in front of bulldozers, but the sheriff dragged me away each time, muttering about trespassing on private property. Imagine that, trespassing on land where your father is buried under the oak tree. The homeowners association saw me as a nuisance, a bitter old farmer clinging to the past. They sent me letters threatening fines if I harassed the residents. And yet, every time I stood by my dam, I remembered something they didn't know. The homes they built sat right in the valley basin, on the flat land that depended on the little dam upstream holding steady. Without it, all that water would roll downhill, fast and furious. I didn't want revenge, at least not at first. I wanted justice. I wanted recognition. I wanted someone to acknowledge what they had stolen. But when the HOA president, a sharp-suited man named Carly, stood in my yard one afternoon and sneered, "It's over, old man. Move on," something in me hardened. That's when the idea took root. The storm came in late summer, the kind of storm that rattles windows and bends trees sideways. Rain hammered the tin roof of my farmhouse, and I sat in the dark, listening to the dam groan under the pressure. I had inspected it earlier that day. The water level was higher than I had ever seen, and I knew if I pulled the release gate, the valley would flood. Not enough to kill, but enough to ruin every basement, every manicured lawn, every house that wasn't supposed to be there. I wrestled with myself all evening. I thought of my father, who always said, "A man's worth is measured not by what he owns, but by what he protects." Was I protecting my land, or destroying theirs? But then I thought of the sheriff turning his back, of the judge dismissing me, of Carl's smug face in my yard. No one had protected me. No one had stood up for what was right. So just past midnight, with the rain still pouring, I pulled on my boots, grabbed a flashlight, and walked to the dam. The air was thick, heavy with the smell of wet earth. My hands trembled as I gripped the wheel on the release gate. For a moment, I froze a bit. Then I thought about my father's grave under that oak tree, waterlogged now from all the runoff. I turned the wheel. The roar was deafening. Water surged out like a beast unchained, tearing down the channel and into the valley. I watched as the current carved through the darkness, unstoppable. Lights flickered on in the houses below. I could hear the faint shouts, the barking of dogs, the chaos spreading as the water rose into streets and yards. By dawn, the neighborhood was unrecognizable. Cars were stranded, basements flooded, lawns turned into swamps. The HOA sign lay bent in the mud. Reporters came, helicopters hovered, and county officials finally stood on my land day not to arrest me, but to ask why. And I told them everything, about the land, about the stolen deeds, about the dam that kept their precious valley safe for decades. The story spread like wildfire. Some called me reckless, others called me a hero. But for the first time, people listened. Investigations opened, papers were reviewed, and sure enough, corruption surfaced. County officials had taken bribes to fast-track the development, erasing my rights in the process. The HOA crumbled under lawsuits. Families had to rebuild, but this time, they knew the truth. Their homes were never meant to be there. As for me, I stood by the dam again weeks later, the reservoir calm, reflecting the sky. I didn't feel joy, or even victory. What I felt was something quieter, the weight of having defended what generations before me had entrusted. And in that silence, I realized something. Sometimes you don't wait for others to protect what matters. Sometimes you have to open the floodgates yourself. Closing message, inspiring note. If you've ever felt powerless, if you've ever been ignored or pushed aside, remember this story. Your voice matters, your fight matters, and the route to protect whether land, family, or values they matter. Don't let anyone build over them. Stand firm, because when you finally open your dam, the world will have no choice but to listen.